Well, it has been a busy couple weeks at TheBXi, the Brand X Industries, in case you were wondering what that acronym stands for. Originally, I intended it to be like, I had all of this logo stuff. The brand they don't want you to know about. Brand X as in Xmas, like Jesus. Mostly I came up with it as a compensation for the fact that when Twitter was called Twitter and they had limitations on the length of your name, John Schieffer was too long, so I had to shorten it. So I just went with Brand X John. Anyway, I like it. It's been a busy couple weeks at the Brand X Industries. My good friend and collaborator on Leaving Jackson, Colorado, Matt Wallace.
Hey, Cab.
He's a very good science fiction and fantasy writer. I love his writing. I will read anything he writes and puts out, whether it's a screenplay, which I enjoy, or novels, which I enjoy more, only because when he writes, sometimes he gets into this space where his language has a poetry, and it's beautiful. The two stories that absolutely blow my mind, one of them I don't know if it's online, so I don't know if you can read it, it's called Sunday. Sundea. Just powerful. And the other one is called Small Wars, and I will link to both of them if I can find them online. So he and I and our mutual friend Edward were out to dinner one night, and I told him about Death Row Book Club and where it was at, and he said, send it to me and I'll send it to my agent. Because Matt is a science fiction and fantasy writer, his agent is in that space. And so we sent it to her, and we didn't hear back for basically a year because she was having a lot of life happen, which I don't know what it is, but when I try to make something or collaborate with somebody, if the universe doesn't want it, if the timing isn't right, then things just happen that prevent people from collaborating with me. And this started happening to his agent, like weird stuff. Eventually she did get back. She said it was not her specialty because Death Row Book Club is not a sci-fi or fantasy novel. I mean, it's in the near future, but not far enough to warrant the sci-fi fantasy space. Nor am I really dealing with the typical ideas within science fiction and fantasy. It is an attempt to use fictionalized stories to critique the structure of the United States and what it is. It didn't start out that way, but that's what it became, and I love that it became that, and as it became that, I leaned into it. But she did say that it was good and enjoyable and publishable, and she's going to recommend it to literary agents who are not genre literary agents, and that's pretty cool. I don't know what'll happen to it. It took a year to hear back from her the first time. We'll see what happens this time. So that was kind of weird because it was simultaneously an acceptance and a rejection, like all the emotions. I finished the first AI generated project for my client, Don Garlits. He is very happy with it. I want to create a whole video of it because I want to highlight both what's possible and what we did with this video is extraordinary. Like it would take 6 months and millions of dollars to do without AI. But I also ran into a lot of really weird stuff that AI does. If he gives me permission to share that with you, I will do that. It's his. It was a contract work, which means work for hire. I don't get royalties. I don't own it. It uses his likeness and his voice, and like, it's just not mine to share without his permission. But I'll sell him on the idea that it's kind of promoting his biopic. He's 94. He wants physical drives. So I had to order some thumb drives. They're on their way, and that project will be shipping tomorrow, which for you will be yesterday when this video comes out on Thursday, because it's now Tuesday. Is that confusing? My wife and I have been celebrating our 21st anniversary, and it's wonderful. It was probably our best anniversary. We didn't travel anywhere really. Instead, what we did is we just kind of went in local journeys near our home, relatively. We ate at our first Michelin star restaurant, which was pretty good. Not our favorite restaurant. Our favorite restaurant is a place called Elderberry outside of Yosemite. But this was pretty darn good. In Carlsbad, a place called Jeune et Jolie. We got to sit right next to the kitchen and listen to the chef give instructions to his various line cooks. I don't even know if they're called that. That's probably a reductive term. Matt Wallace knows the correct term since he wrote an amazing fiction book series called Sin du Jour, which I highly recommend. We also went to Pechanga Casino and Resort, and I went there because my wife had never been. I originally went there to scout it as a location for Some Call It Luck, because part of Some Call It Luck takes place in a casino, and that casino is profoundly cinematic, and one of my friends happens to be good friends with one of the members of the tribe who owns the casino. We're continuing that conversation. He's putting out a movie that I'm going to promote on this channel when it's available to people. Right now it's kind of on the festival circuit. We saw Bill Burr in person, which is my wife's favorite comedian, and I think he's pretty darn funny too. Pechanga is in Temecula, and Temecula is hardcore Trump country. Even though it's basically a nearly uninhabitable wasteland, rich people live there. They own vineyards, they own land, and they commute from Temecula to other places. Not my choice, but that's what they do. Bill Burr is not a liberal comedian. He is not a conservative comedian. I think he rides the line in between in a way that's pretty amazing. That's not why I'm bringing his comedy show up. Why I'm bringing it up is because he has a repertoire of bits, and a bit is basically a short story that has humorous points to it. That's comedy. And I watched him adjust which jokes he was telling and when, tuning the audience so that we all left as though we enjoyed the experience, even though he hit on both sides of the political spectrum, which I think is brilliant. I don't think I've ever seen a comedian do that. And every now and then I come across someone who is an absolute master of their craft, an artisan, and Bill Burr is absolutely that. The fact that he could tune the audience and change his jokes and respond in real time, not sticking to a specific set that he might have had programmed in his mind, but just changing what came next so that by the end, even though there were points where the Republicans were very upset, we all left happy. I was watching an artist do their craft at artisan level, and it was just, yes, he was funny, but there was like that transcendent, this guy is, wow, this can be done. And he kept commenting on the vibe of the space, which I totally get. Like, I was expecting it to be a sort of small kind of amphitheater, like the Hollywood Bowl or something, but scaled down a little bit. It's a 3,000 seat theater, but it's basically a ballroom with elevated seats in the back and filled with Republicans. Like, who goes to Bill Burr not knowing what kind of jokes he's going to tell? That's like, you know, he's a known commodity. He's been out for a while. You know what you're getting. But to watch people get offended, there was even a point where people were booing, and then he just massaged it. Oh, so good. We also went to our favorite taco shop in Los Angeles called Via's Tacos in Grand Central Market. It is, I don't recommend going in the summer because they have no air conditioning. It is a giant warehouse converted into a food court, and I don't really recommend the other places because they're either overpriced or not very good. But Via's Tacos are easily the best tacos I've ever had, and I live near Mexicans who make amazing tacos. They're better than the Tacos El Gordo in Las Vegas. Before Via's Tacos, we went to the Japanese consulate because I wanted my wife to have a Japanese passport in case we need to flee the United States if it politically collapses. And it turns out the Japanese have specific standards, and my wife needs to go to the hometown in which her dad had registered her to the main political building in that town to get proof of her citizenship, because that's where they store it. There's no centralized storage of citizenship in Japan, apparently. Like, it's thousands of dollars to get to Japan, thousands of dollars to stay in Japan. When I saw the rigidity of that, I had two realizations. One, she's already a citizen of Japan and we can flee the United States without the passport. Two, all we need to do is go to that town once we get to Japan and we're free and clear. So we don't really need the passport. Before we went to the Japanese embassy, we went to a bookstore called The Last Bookstore in Los Angeles. And I was hoping for something like Powell's, but it wasn't that. It was actually a really cool space. I highly recommend visiting it. It's probably the best used bookstore in California that I've been to, certainly in downtown Los Angeles. I bring it up because as I was hanging out there, I had an idea for a new series. My spiritual quest has been basically that if my spirituality is real, it will affect everything that I do. And one of the anthologies that I've been working on that Leaving Jackson, Colorado and Libertas are a part of is the Anthology of Violence, which is basically deconstructing violence as a justifiable and right emotional response to any kind of emotional distress. The next one is called Soldier Girl, and I don't really want to get into what that story is because it's a good idea and it might come to something someday, but right now it's not coming to something. But I feel like there's some part of me that wants to add joy instead of melancholy. And while I was in the last bookstore, I had an idea for a series that I'm going to try and make. It's called Poetry in Motion. That's all I'm going to say about it. So the premise I'm operating on spiritually is that my body is primarily, well, that I don't have a body in the conventional sense, that I appear to have one, but in fact it's an energy it's a fifth dimensional energy compressed or contracted or collapsed into the form that appears to be my body. And in fact, what's intrinsically real is that space-time itself, which is a concept that gets a little weird, is vibrating, and that vibrating creates a resonance, and that resonance appears to be solid matter, but it isn't. If that's the case, if that's true, then the limitations of our bodies are a construct, because our awareness exists in that expanded energy state, and we limit ourselves to our physical bodies in a sort of delusional way. That's the premise I've been operating on. That's the meditation that I try and do each morning and throughout the day, that my previous narrative keeps trying to reassert itself, that in certain situations I respond in specific ways. But as my awareness of that tendency continues to progress, what I've chosen to do is that I've used those tendencies to respond in a specific way as a mnemonic device to remind me to meditate on the self that I am intending to become, which is to say the more intrinsic self, my energetic state. What that means practically is that when I have a desire to look at porn, I say, I am an energetic being. And then I meditate on the reality of that. When I have a desire to drink alcohol, I say, I am an energetic being. And I meditate on the reality of that. What does it feel like to be this energy? I can imagine it. And slowly the imagination gains solidarity and more coherence and also transforms into what it actually is versus what I imagine it to be. So imagination starts as a visualization created from my experiences, but also creates the first step for me to segue from where I am into where I want to be, such that my final self can be the intrinsic reality. In other words, the manifestation of my imagination changes with each iteration because I gain an experience of the intrinsic reality as I step into that space. Follow all that? I get it from the introduction to the Book of the Dead. The specific version I have has an introduction written by the Dalai Lama. And the Tibetan Book of the Dead is basically their version of what transitioning from this life into energetic state and back again feels like, and how one prepares one's mind and body for that transition such that it can become as smooth as possible. There are various meditations throughout the book to facilitate that transition, that shifting of mindset from what we think is real to what is actually real. And because it's Buddhism, they have all kinds of layers to it. In the preface, the Dalai Lama says, this is going to feel like imagination, but it's not. And that's a weird idea to wrap our heads around, because in Western civilization, we tell ourselves that our imagination is a fantasy, it's a fiction that we've created, compiled from our various experiences. They've taken that so far as to create what's called an ontological argument for reality. Since everything in our imagination is a construct, if we can imagine it, then our imagination must also be based on reality, and therefore there is some intrinsic reality to our imagination. Therefore, since we can imagine God, God must exist in some way. I don't think that argument is a great one at all. But it does illustrate the construct of Western philosophy, that there is spirituality and then there is science, and there is a clear divide between those two. This is not real. This divide is not real, because if we're actually studying reality, and if spirituality is real, then we will eventually begin to bump up against it. And that's exactly what I'm talking about. Using the mnemonic devices as a trigger to send me back into the meditation, what was counterproductive becomes profoundly productive. What used to draw me back into constraining me to the physical world now brings me into the spirituality I want to be into, the metaphysics I want to be in, the energetic state I want to be in. And the more I do it, the more I'm retraining my body. It's not work. I'm not working my way there, because to say that I'm working my way there is to imply that there is a there to get to, which there isn't, because the there is where I already am. And by saying that I need to get there, what I'm also saying is that I am not there now. And that becomes counterproductive. There are entire disciplines of meditation, specifically Zen masters of the past, who create structures that are entirely designed to frustrate this part of your mind, such that you eventually give up. And in giving up, you let go. And in letting go, you realize that you already have what it is that you seek. Last week, I talked about hanging on. I talked about how there was guilt and shame that I was hanging on to shortly after I made that video. Another layer manifested itself, which is that I think that I have things to do, and I think that I need to do them in this form. And that my belief that I need to do those things keeps me locked into this form, which limits my ability to operate as an energetic being. It's a slippery idea for me, which means that my brain doesn't want to accept it because I'm digging at some fundamental stuff that my brain has accepted as reality, and my brain runs on sugar and therefore is lazy. You can read about more of that in Daniel Kahneman's amazing book, Thinking Fast and Slow, which I will link to in the description. I want to tell you what it was actually like as I lived into my energetic state last Tuesday. It's not a juxtaposition. They are not enemies with each other. Almost all spiritual disciplines create a dichotomy between this physical form and the energetic state. But if this physical form is a manifestation of the energetic state, then it is also a subset of the energetic state and therefore is the energetic state. And to create a juxtaposition between those two, to create a contrast, is false. Instead, the energetic state manifests in this form fully. In other words, the thing that I want, I already have. And this is it. There is more, but it is also this. I have a good friend named Kyle. And Kyle is, I've mentioned him before, he's basically a local vigilante. He's Casey Jones from Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the guy who walks around with a hockey mask. Kyle doesn't wear a hockey mask, and beats up criminals. And that's what Kyle does in our neighborhood. He beats up the sewer drug gang. He's the one who persuades the cops to come and check out the sewer drug gang and continually evict them from their sewer, at which point they will then move to another sewer. So Kyle's basically playing whack-a-mole, which is why I want the sewer grates, because if we grate all of the sewers, then there's nowhere for them to go. Kyle used to be a cage fighter, meaning he fought people in cages in illegal fights underneath a high school in Tijuana. And part of that means he got traumatic brain injuries, knocked unconscious. And the long-term effect is that Kyle has serious anger issues and that he has epilepsy. Sometimes he and I will be talking. It used to be triggered by anger, but now it's just casual conversation. And I will watch him as he slips into a seizure, and I'll hold him and lay him down on the ground and hang out with him until his seizure passes and he has enough wherewithal to get back home, where he will then go to sleep because seizures are exhausting. Kyle also rides a motorcycle. Kyle does not have a license to ride a motorcycle, but he does it anyway, or he used to. He rides a motorcycle, he explains, instead of driving a car, because in case he has a seizure, it will do less damage to other people. Well, a couple of weeks ago, Kyle was riding his motorcycle out to the desert at 113 miles an hour when he had a seizure. He flew off his bike and slammed into the van ahead of him. If the van ahead of him was doing the speed limit, which is 65 to 70 miles an hour, and that's a pretty good guess, then he basically hit the van at 43 miles per hour. If the van was stopped, he hit it at 113. Amazingly, he didn't break any bones, but he did seem to have some either brain damage or the drugs that he was on prevented his short-term memory. I'm getting ahead of myself. As I was walking to the hospital to visit my friend Kyle, I was living in that space of I am constrained to this body because I believe I have things to do, one of which is visit my friend Kyle. And I was reminded by Spirit that I create this weird juxtaposition that my work and my spirituality are at odds with each other, and they are not. And so I let go of that categorization, and I stepped into the energetic space. I felt the energy in my body. I allowed it to become the focus of my concentration, and stepped into the hospital. I intended to visit my friend Kyle because I believed that he was not being visited by other people, and I had that belief because that's what he told me. As I got up there, I found his girlfriend, Millie Jo, and his apartment mate, Kevin, visiting him. And I was like, well, if he's getting all these visitors, what do I need to be here for? Here's the thing about spirituality It's the practical expression of spirituality that I was trying to describe earlier. There is no juxtaposition. It's all working together to reunite us into perfect unity with God, energy, source, creator, whatever you want to call it. And it's inexorable, and it's doing it in all of us. And we can become aware of that in the process of it happening, and therefore, I don't know, feel better about it, lean more into it, expedite this reunification. I don't know. It's what I tend to do. The things that we do, our motivations, our situations, all of them, yes, even those, are guiding us towards this unity. But one of the problems that we have, our brains are pattern recognition machines. So what they're going to try and do when we get a hint of what the pattern is that we're supposed to be leaning into, we create plans of what the fruition of that pattern looks like. I had an idea of what my visit to Kyle was supposed to look like, and it kept not looking like it. Each time I iterated, I created a new plan, and each time it ended up not looking that way. I intended to visit him because I thought he was alone. He was not alone. I was going to leave because I was like, what's the point? But I felt Spirit say, no, stay. So I stayed. And his girlfriend and apartment mate left. And then I was alone with Kyle. Kyle immediately started picking up his phone. I was like, if the dude's not going to be present with me, what do I need to be here for? And I wanted to leave. And I felt Spirit say, stay. So I stayed. And he called someone. And the person lived nearby, but hadn't visited Kyle. Kyle had a tracheotomy. So talking on the phone wasn't super viable. So I took the phone and I relayed the situation to his friend. The friend was shocked. And he's like, well, I'll try and come visit by as soon as possible. I was like, oh, I'm here to be Kyle's voice. That's pretty cool. So he hung up the phone and called another person, his friend William. And I shared the situation with William. And William was like, yeah, I'm aware of all of that. I visited Kyle on Sunday, 2 days earlier. I was like, oh. And William's like, I think maybe Kyle might have had some brain damage or something. And so I realized that my purpose for being there was to be with Kyle, to share energy with him, to facilitate his healing, but also to let the doctors and nurses know the state that he's currently in is not his normal state. Now, I don't know if his short-term memory loss is the result of slamming into a car at 43 or 113 miles an hour, or if it's the result of the fairly powerful drugs that he's on. But this is not the guy I know. His memory isn't perfect, but it's pretty good. And so I shared that with the doctor. I don't think there was one reason why I was with Kyle. My brain, as a functionalist, tried to create one reason, but there just wasn't one. There were many. And I think it's easy to go along a path and think that our function of being on the path is to reach the destination. But like the Zens and Buddhists and the spiritual people of the East say, the journey is the destination. I feel like that can be trite and cliche, and we can easily dismiss it as some truism that we've heard so many times it has no meaning. But there's also a statement in Zen, which is, you leave a place to come back to it so that you can see it for the first time. Maybe we need to revisit that statement. The destination, the journey is the destination. This video has gone on long, but I want to share one more story, so I'm just going to do that, and hopefully YouTube doesn't throttle it because it's now a 40-minute video. I'm not sorry it's long. If I were sorry, I would change it. Last night, I had a dream. The dream was I was walking with someone who was old. I was walking them home. My memory is saying it was my dad, but that's kind of fuzzy. That's not the part that was important. And I asked, I'm not just going to say it's my dad because rather than this person, I asked my dad, I was like, do you want me to just teleport you home? He's like, okay. And in that space, I felt a mirror dimly vision of me being in the destination that I wanted to get to, collapsing what appeared to be reality further, grabbing myself and my dad and pulling us both through from where we were to where I wanted to be. And that was what teleportation was. When I woke up this morning, I had a strong sense that that's what it actually is. And I leaned into it. Now, I wasn't able to teleport because I'm still in the process of retraining my brain. But teleporting is real. People have done it. People I know have done it. And people in the past have done it. You can read about it in Ram Dass's biography of his mentor, Miracle of Love. I'll link to that in the comments. You can read about it in the book of Acts in the Bible, where Philip teleports. Or, as I said, some of my college contemporaries, some of my college mates at Vanguard University teleported across a river. So I know it's real. And maybe I'm discovering the mechanism behind it. And maybe someone who doesn't need all of the intellectual buttressing that I do can do it without that, but I need that. And so I'm beginning to understand the actual mechanism of it. It's wild watching a theory become reality in front of me. It's not the same as what I imagined it to be. It's far more wonderful. I want to see where this goes. I'm excited to see where this goes. My wife says I become obsessed with this stuff, but like, as good as sex is, as good as alcohol is, as good as I'm sure hallucinogenic drugs are, they are shadows of the joy that is possible in this other space. And I know that because I've felt it sometimes. And how can I pursue anything else to the same degree? Now, this video has gone on long enough. I hope you found it useful. Maybe it'll lead to a meditation for you, maybe it won't. This is my journey and I'm sharing it with you. You will see me next week.